Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Uh-oh. Let's say Shri Mataji, she went, I forgot to go live on YouTube. One second, let me just find. Modified's YouTube page. The heck? Where's, okay, here, there, okay. Oh, she got it, awesome. Okay, never mind. The glories of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Okay, so yesterday, okay. Shaunaka's eagerness to hear about Lord Kapila. Okay, so Devahuti's questions to Lord Kapila. Remembering the words of Brahma, Devahuti began to question Lord Kapila, who could show her the ultimate goal of the absolute truth. This is Devahuti. She said, I am very sick of the disturbance caused due to my material senses, by which I have fallen into ignorance. You are my transcendental eye, and the one who makes me cross over this ignorance. After many births, today I attain you by your mercy. You have arisen like the sun to dissipate the darkness of ignorance of the universe. So she says, please dispel my illusion of aham mameti, due to my false ego created by your Maya. It is your Maya alone that has bewildered me, and I should ask you only. I take shelter because you are the only person of whom to take shelter. You are the axe which can cut the tree of material existence of your devotees. You are the best of the knowers of bhakti. So please explain about the jiva in the material world. Please explain about Purush and Prakriti. All right. So this is, yeah. Now this is Kapila Muni's answer to her. Maitreya Uvacha. One second, let me see the chat. Okay. Oh, by the way, when I opened up my YouTube page, there was a video that looked like it was a weird one, but it was just an SNL video. It wasn't anything what it looked like. Just wanted to clarify. Okay. Saturday Night Live. Okay. Maitreya Uvacha Iti Swamatur Nirvadamipsitam Ishamya Pungsam Apavargavardhanam Diya Binandyatman Vatam Satam Gatir Bhabhasha Ishat Smitashobitana. Maitreya said, after hearing of his mother's uncontaminated desire for transcendental realization, the Lord thanked her within himself for her questions. The Lord thanked her within himself for her questions, and thus, his face smiling, he explains the path of transcendentalists who are interested in self-realization. Purport. Devahuti has surrendered her Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Devahuti has surrendered her confession of material entanglement and her desire to gain release. Her questions to Lord Kapila are very interesting for persons who are actually trying to get liberation from material entanglement and attain the perfectional stage of human life. Unless one is interested in understanding his spiritual life or his constitutional position, and unless he also feels inconvenience in material existence, his human form of life is spoiled. One who does not care for these transcendental necessities of life and simply engages like an animal in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating has spoiled his life. Lord Kapila was very much satisfied by his mother's questions because the answers stimulate one's desire for liberation from the conditional life of material existence. Such questions are called Apavarga Vardhana. Those who have actual spiritual interest are called Sat, or devotees. Satam Prasangat. Sat means that which eternally exists, and Asat means that which is not eternal. Unless one is situated on the spiritual platform, he is not Sat, he is Asat. The Asat stands on a platform which will not exist, but anyone who stands on the spiritual platform will exist eternally. As spirit soul, everyone exists eternally, but the Asat has accepted the material world as his shelter, and therefore he is full of anxiety. Asad Grahan, the incompatible situation of the spirit soul who has the false idea of enjoying matter, is the cause of the soul's being Asat. Actually, the spirit soul is not Asat. As soon as one is conscious of this fact and takes to Krishna consciousness, he becomes Sat. Satam Gati, the path of the eternal, is very interesting to persons who are after liberation, and his lordship, Kapila, began to speak about that path. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Yoga Adhyatmika Pungsam Mato Nishreyasaya Me Adyanto Paratiryatra Dukasya Cha Sukasya Cha. The personality of Godhead answered, the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity, and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. Purport. In the material world, everyone is trying to get some material happiness. But as soon as we get some material happiness, there is also material distress. In the material world, one cannot have unadulterated happiness. Any kind of happiness one has is contaminated by distress also. For example, if we want to drink milk, then we have to bother to maintain a cow and keep her fit to supply milk. Drinking milk is very nice. It is also a pleasure. But for the sake of drinking milk, one has to accept so much trouble. The yoga system, as here stated by the Lord, is meant to end all material happiness and material distress. The best yoga, as taught in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, is Bhakti Yoga. It is also mentioned in the Gita that one should try to be tolerant and not be disturbed by material happiness or distress. Of course, one may say that he is not disturbed by material happiness, but he does not know that just after one. Of course, one may say that he is not disturbed by material happiness, but he does not know that just after one enjoys so-called material happiness, material distress will follow. This is the law of the material world. Lord Kapila states that the yoga system is the science of the spirit. One practices yoga in order to attain perfection on the spiritual platform. There is no question of material happiness or distress. It is transcendental. Lord Kapila will eventually explain how it is transcendental, but the preliminary introduction is given here. Tam imam te pravikshyami yamavocham puranage rishinam shrutu kamanam yogam sarvanga naipunam. O most pious mother, I shall now explain unto you the ancient yoga system, which I explained formerly to the great sages. It is serviceable and practical in every way. Purport. The Lord does not manufacture a new system of yoga. Sometimes it is claimed that someone has been an incarnation of God and is expounding a new theological aspect of the absolute truth. But here we find that although Kapila Muni is the Lord himself and is capable of manufacturing a new doctrine for his mother, he nevertheless says, I shall explain the ancient system which I once explained to the great sages, because they were also anxious to hear about it. When we have a super excellent process already present in Vedic scriptures, there is no need to concoct a new system to mislead the innocent public. At present, it has become a fashion to reject the standard system and present something bogus in the name of a newly invented process of yoga. Chetakala vasya bandaya muktaye chatmano matam guneshu saktam bandaya ratam va pungsi muktaye. The stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the three modes of material nature is called conditional life. But when that same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. There is a distinction here between Krishna consciousness and Maya consciousness. Guneshu, or Maya consciousness, involves attachments to the three material modes of nature, It involves attachment to the three modes of material nature, under which one works sometimes in goodness and knowledge, sometimes in passion, and sometimes in ignorance. These different qualitative activities, with the central attachment for material enjoyment, are the cause of one's conditional life. When the same Cheta, or consciousness, is transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, or when one becomes Krishna conscious, he is on the path of liberation. Aham mama bhimanotai kamalobha dibir malai vitam yada manashudham adhukam asukam samam. When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, one's mind becomes purified. In that pure state, he transcends the stage of so-called material happiness and distress. Purport. Kama and Lobha are the symptoms of material existence. Everyone always desires to possess something. It is said here that desire and greed are the products of false identification of oneself with the body. When one becomes free from this contamination, his mind and consciousness also become freed and attain their original state. Mind, consciousness, and the living entity exist. Whenever we speak of the living entity, this includes the mind and consciousness. The difference between conditional life and liberated life occurs when we purify the mind and the consciousness. When they are purified, one becomes transcendental to material happiness and distress. In the beginning, Lord Kapila has said that perfect able to transcend the material distress and happiness. How this can be done is explained here. One has to purify his mind and consciousness. This can be done by the Bhakti Yoga system. As explained in the Nara Pancharatra, one's mind and senses should be purified. Tat paratvena niram. One's senses must be engaged in devotional service to the Lord. That is the process. The mind must have some engagement. One cannot make the mind vacant. Of course, there are some foolish attempts to try to make it vacant or void, but that is not possible. The only process that will purify the mind is to engage it in Krishna. The mind must be engaged. If we engage our mind in Krishna, naturally the consciousness becomes fully purified, and there is no chance of the entrance of material desire and greed. Tada purushatmanam kevalam prakrite param nirantaram swayam jyotir animanam akhanditam. At that time, the soul can see himself to be transcendental to material existence and always self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size. Purport. In the state of pure consciousness, or Krishna consciousness, one can see himself as a minute particle non-different from the Supreme Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the jiva, or the individual soul, is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Just as the sun's rays are minute particles of the brilliant constitution of the sun, so a living entity is a minute particle of the Supreme Spirit. The individual soul and the Supreme Lord are not separated as in material differentiation. The individual soul is a particle from the very beginning. One should not think that because the individual soul is a particle, it is fragmented from the whole spirit. Mayavad philosophy enunciates that the whole spirit exists, but a part of it, which is called the jiva, is entrapped by illusion. This philosophy, however, is unacceptable because spirit soul cannot be divided like a fragment of matter. That part, the jiva, is eternally apart. As long as the Supreme Spirit exists, his part and parcel also exists. As long as the sun exists, the molecules of the sun's rays also exist. The jiva particle is estimated in the Vedic literature to be 1/10,000th the size of the upper portion of a hair. It is therefore infinitesimal. The Supreme Spirit is infinite, but the living entity, or the individual soul, is infinitesimal, although it is not different in quality from the Supreme Spirit. Two words in this verse are to be particularly noted. One is nirantaram, which means non-different or of the same quality. One is nirantaram, which means non-different or of the same quality. The individual soul is also expressed here as animanam. Animanam means infinitesimal. The Supreme Spirit is all-pervading, but the very small spirit is the individual soul. Supreme soul is all-pervading, but the small spirit is an individual soul. Akhanditam means not exactly fragmented, but constitutionally always infinitesimal. One cannot separate the molecular parts of the sunshine from the sun. But at the same time, the molecular part of the sunshine is not as expansive as the sun itself. Similarly, the living entity, by his constitutional position, is qualitatively the same as the Supreme Spirit, but he is infinitesimal. Jnana vairagya yuktena bhakti yuktena chakmana paripashyattu dasina prakritim cha hatojasam. In that position of self-realization, by practice of knowledge and renunciation and devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective. He becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him. Purport. As the contamination of germs of a particular disease can influence a weaker person, similarly, the influence of material nature or illusory energy can act on the weaker or conditioned soul, not on the liberated soul. Self-realization is the position of the liberated state. One understands his constitutional position by knowledge and vairagya, renunciation. Without knowledge, one cannot have realization. The realization that one is the infinitesimal part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit makes him unattached to material conditional life. That is the beginning of devotional service. Unless one is liberated from material contamination, one cannot engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. In this verse, therefore, it is stated, Jnana vairagya yuktena. When one is in full knowledge of one's constitutional position and is in the renounced order of life, detached from material attraction, then, by pure devotional service, bhakti yuktena, he can engage himself as a loving servant of the Lord. Paripashyati means that he can see everything in its right perspective. Then the influence of material nature becomes almost nil. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Brahma bhuta prashanatma. When one is situated, he becomes happy and freed from the influence of material nature. And at that time, he is freed from lamentation and hankering. The Lord states that position as madbhaktam The Lord states that position as Mar Bhaktim Labate Param, the real state of beginning devotional service. Similarly, it is confirmed in the Narad Pancharatra that when the senses are purified, they can then be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. One who is attached to material contamination cannot be a devotee. Na yujamanaya bhaktya bhagavata kilatmani sadrishosti shiva panta yoginam brahmasedaye. Perfection in self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path. Purport: That knowledge and renunciation are never perfect unless joined by devotional service is explicitly explained here. Nayujamanaya means without being dovetailed. When there is devotional service, then the question is where to offer that service. Devotional service is to be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the super soul of everything, for that is the only reliable path of self-realization, or Brahman realization. The word Brahma Siddhaye means to understand oneself. It means to understand oneself to be different from matter, to understand oneself to be Brahman. The Vedic words are. Looks like there's a sentence missing. It's annoying because I don't have a physical book anymore, so I can't. I don't have a way to. Here. Sorry, guys. I'm just opening it up. Okay. Brahma Siddhi means that one should know that he is not matter. Okay, it just says the Vedic words are Aham Brahmasmi. That's what we're missing. Okay. The Vedic words are Aham Brahmasmi. Brahma Siddhi means that one should know that he is not matter, he is pure soul. There are different kinds of yogis, but every yogi is supposed to engage in self-realization, or Brahman realization. It is clearly stated here that unless one is fully engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot have an easy approach to the path of Brahma Siddhi. In the beginning of the second chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is stated that when one engages himself in the devotional service of Vasudeva, spiritual knowledge and renunciation of the material world automatically become manifest. Thus, a devotee does not have to try separately for renunciation or knowledge. Devotional service itself is so powerful that by one's service attitude, everything is revealed. It is stated here, Shiva Panta. This is the only auspicious path for self-realization. The path of devotional service is the most confidential means for attaining Brahman realization. That perfection in Brahman realization is attained through the auspicious path of devotional service. That perfection in Brahman realization is attained through the auspicious path of devotional service indicates that the so-called Brahman realization, or realization of the Brahmajyoti effulgence, is not Brahma Siddhi. Beyond that Brahmajyoti, there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Upanishads, a devotee prays to the Lord to kindly put aside the effulgence, the Brahmajyoti, so that the devotee may see within the Brahmajyoti the actual eternal form of the Lord. Unless one attains realization of the transcendental form of the Lord, there is no question of bhakti. Bhakti necessitates the existence of the recipient of devotional service and the devotee who renders devotional service. Brahma Siddhi through devotional service is realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The understanding of the effulgent rays of the body of the Supreme Godhead is not the perfect stage of Brahma Siddhi, or Brahman realization. Nor is the realization of the Paramatma feature of the Supreme Person perfect. For Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is Akhilatma. He is the Supersoul. One who realizes the Supreme Personality realizes the other features, namely the Paramatma feature and the Brahman feature, and that total realization is Brahma Siddhi. Prasangam ajaram pasham atmana kavayo vidu sa eva sadusho krito moksha dvaram apavritam. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement for the spiritual soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation. It's a nice verse. There's a verse by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Vishaya je priti ebe achaya amar she mata priti hok charane tamar. He's praying to the Lord, may I love you, may I have the same kind of attachment for you that I have for material objects. Purport. Here it is clearly stated that attachment for one thing is the cause of bondage and conditioned life, and that same attachment, when applied to something else, opens the door of liberation. Attachment cannot be killed. It has simply to be transferred. Attachment for material things is called material consciousness, and attachment for Krishna or his devotee is called Krishna consciousness. Consciousness, therefore, is the platform of attachment. It is clearly stated here that when we simply purify the consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness, we attain liberation. I'm going to save that. It is clearly stated here that when we simply purify the consciousness, then we attain liberation. Despite the statements that one should give up attachment, desirelessness is not possible for a living entity. A living entity by constitution has the propensity to be attached to something. We see that if someone has no object of attachment, if he has no children, then he transfers his attachment to cats and dogs. This indicates that the propensity for attachment cannot be stopped. It must be utilized for the best purpose. Our attachment for material things perpetuates our conditional state, but the same attachment, when transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, is the source of liberation. Here it is recommended that attachment should be transferred to the self-realized devotees, the sadhus. And who is a sadhu? A sadhu is not just an ordinary man with saffron robe or long beard. A sadhu is described in Bhagavad Gita as one who unflinchingly engages in devotional service. Even though one is found not to be following the strict rules and regulations of devotional service, if one simply has unflinching faith in Krishna, the Supreme Person, he is understood to be a sadhu. Sadhur eva samantavya. A sadhu is a strict follower of devotional service. It is recommended here that if one at all wants to realize Brahman or spiritual perfection, his attachment should be transferred to the sadhu, or a devotee. This is a really nice purport. Lord Chaitanya also confirmed this. Lava matra sadhu sange sarva siddhi hoy. Simply by a moment's association with a sadhu, one can attain perfection. Mahatma is a synonym of sadhu. It is said that service to a Mahatma, or elevated devotee of the Lord, is Dwaram Ahor Vimukte, the royal road of liberation. Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahor Vimuktes, Tamo Dwara Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. Bhagavatam 552. Rendering service to the materialist has the opposite effect. If anyone offers service to a gross materialist or a person engaged only in sense enjoyment, then by association with such a person, the door to hell is opened. The same principle is confirmed here. Attachment to a devotee is attachment to the service of the Lord, because if one associates with a sadhu, the result will be that the sadhu will teach him how to become a devotee, a worshipper and sincere servitor of the Lord. These are the gifts of a sadhu. If we want to associate with a sadhu, we cannot expect him to give us instructions on how to improve our material condition, but he will give us instructions on how to cut the knot of the contamination of material attraction and how to elevate ourselves in devotional service. That is the result of associating with a sadhu. Kapila Muni first of all instructs that the path of liberation begins with such association. One second, I just want to paste this quote. Later. Okay. Titikshava karunika surida sarvadehinam ajata satrava shanta sadava sadhubhushana. The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. A sadhu, as described above, is a devotee of the Lord. His concern, therefore, is to enlighten people in devotional service to the Lord. That is his mercy. He knows that without devotional service to the Lord, human life is spoiled. A devotee travels all over the country, from door to door, preaching, "Be Krishna conscious. Be a devotee of Lord Krishna. Don't spoil your life in simply fulfilling your animal propensities. Human life is meant for self-realization, or Krishna consciousness." These are the preachings of a sadhu. He is not satisfied with his own liberation. He always thinks about others. He is the most compassionate personality toward all the fallen souls. One of his qualifications, therefore, is karunika, great mercy to the fallen souls. While engaged in preaching work, he has to meet with so many opposing elements, and therefore the sadhu, or devotee of the Lord, has to be very tolerant. Someone may ill-treat him because the conditioned souls are not prepared to receive the transcendental knowledge of devotional service. They do not like it. That is their disease. The sadhu has the thankless task of impressing upon them the importance of devotional service. I like this also. The sadhu has the thankless task of impressing upon them the importance of devotional service. Sometimes devotees are personally attacked with violence. Lord Jesus Christ was crucified. Haridas Thakur was caned in 22 marketplaces. And Lord Chaitanya's principal assistant, Nityananda, was violently attacked by Jagai and Madai. But still they were tolerant because their mission was to deliver the fallen souls. One of the qualifications of a sadhu is that he is very tolerant and merciful to all fallen souls. He is merciful because he is the well-wisher of all living entities. He is not only a well-wisher of human society, but a well-wisher of animal society as well. It is stated here, sarvadehinam, which indicates all living entities who have accepted material bodies. I really like this. Let's see this. It is said here sarvadehinam, which indicates all living entities who have accepted material bodies. Not only does the animal have a material body, but other living entities, such as cats and dogs, also have material bodies. The devotee of the Lord is merciful to everyone, the cats, dogs, trees, etc. He treats all living entities in such a way that they can ultimately get salvation from this material entanglement. Shivananda Sain, one of the disciples of Lord Chaitanya, gave liberation to a dog by treating the dog transcendentally. There are many instances where a dog got salvation by association with the sadhu, because the sadhu engages in the highest philanthropic activities for the benediction of all entities. Yet, although a sadhu is not inimical towards anyone. The world is so ungrateful that even many enemies. What is the difference between an enemy and a friend? It is difference in behavior. A sadhu behaves with all conditioned souls for the ultimate relief from material entanglement. Therefore, no one can be more friendly than a sadhu, a conditioned soul. A sadhu is calm, and he quietly and peacefully follows the principles of scripture. A sadhu means one who follows the principles of scripture and at the same time is a devotee of the Lord. One who actually follows the principles of scriptures must be a devotee of God, because all the shastras instruct us to obey the orders of the personality of Godhead. Sadhu, therefore, means a follower of the scriptural injunctions and a devotee of the Lord. All these characteristics are prominent in a devotee. A devotee develops all the good qualities of the demigods, whereas a non-devotee, even though academically qualified, has no actual good qualifications or good characteristics according to the standard of transcendental realization. Mayananyena bhavena bhaktim. It's almost 2 minutes. Okay, let's see, how long is this purport? Okay, I think we can get to our verse. Mayananyena bhavena bhaktim kurvanti ye dhridam matkrite takta karmanas takta svajana bandhava. Such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections, such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world. Purport. A person in the renounced order of life, a sannyasi, is also called a sadhu because he renounces everything: his home, his comfort, his friends, his relatives, and his duties to friends and to family. He renounces everything for the sake of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A sannyasi is generally in the renounced order of life, but his renunciation will be successful only when his energy is employed in the service of the Lord with great austerity. It is said here, therefore, bhaktim kurvanti ye dhridham. A person who seriously engages in the service of the Lord and is in the renounced order of life is a sadhu. A sadhu is one who has given up all responsibility to society, family, and worldly humanitarianism, simply for the service of the Lord. As soon as he takes birth in the world, a person has so many responsibilities and obligations to the public, to the demigods, to the great sages, to the general living beings, to his parents, to the family forefathers, and to many others. When he gives up all such obligations for the sake of the service of the Supreme Lord, he is not punished for such renunciation of obligation. But if for sense gratification a person renounces all such obligations, he is punished by the laws of nature. By the law of nature. All right. Okay, I'm just going to read because I wanted to read up to verse 23, so I'm just going to go like 2 minutes over. Marashraya katam rishta shinvanti katayanti cha tapanti vividastapa naitan margata chetasa. Engaged constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sadhus do not suffer for material miseries because they were always filled with the thoughts of my pastimes and activities. Sadhus, they do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. Purport. There are multifarious miseries in material existence: those pertaining to the body and the mind, those imposed by other living entities, and those imposed by natural disturbances, adhyatmika, adhibhotika, adhidaya. But a sadhu is not disturbed by such miserable conditions because his mind is always filled with Krishna consciousness, and thus he does not like to talk about anything but the activities of the Lord. Maharaj Ambarish did not speak of anything but the pastimes of the Lord. Vachamsi Vaikuntha Gunanvarnane, Bhagavatam 9.4.18. He engaged his words only in glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sadhus are always interested in hearing about the activities of the Lord or his devotees. Since they are filled with Krishna consciousness, they are forgetful of the material miseries. Ordinary conditioned souls, being forgetful of the activities of the Lord, are always full of anxieties and material tribulations. On the other hand, On the other hand, since the devotees always engage in the topics of the Lord, they are forgetful of the miseries of material existence. All right, and so tomorrow, yeah, if I would have started on time today, I would have been able to finish this. But anyhow, tomorrow, Kapila Muni will finish by saying how. So he just said the characteristics and activities of a sadhu, and tomorrow he'll explain how sadhu's association can gradually lead one to prema, and how practice of jnana and yoga is incomplete without bhakti. That's what we'll read tomorrow. That's up to verse 27. And then Devahuti will ask her second question. What kind of bhakti will help to easily attain you? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki Jai. Natila Pavishta Vishnupad Ashtatara Shata Shishimar Chila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shri Gurudev ki Jai. Natila Pavishta Vishnupad Ashtatara Shata Shishimar Chila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Natila Pavishta Vishnupad Ashtatara Shata Shishimar Chila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Natila Pavishta Vishnupad Chidaranda Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki Jai. Guru Varga ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopal Patasha Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki Jai. Namachay Shri Haridas Thakur ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री आदित्य गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय. श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय. सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय. श्री राधाकुंड श्याम कुंड की जय. श्री मुनि देवी गंगा देवी की जय. श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय. श्री भक्ति देवी की जय. श्री पूर्णमासी अवगमाय की जय. श्री गोपेश्वर देव की जय. श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय. Nitil Pavishta Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Gosai Maharaj ki Jai. Tadiya Avirbhav Titi ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Vishnupad Shila Narahari Seva Vigraha ki Jai. Tadiya Shubha Tirobhav Titi ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Hari Bo.